Argentina defeated Egypt 3-2 in a dramatic FIFA World Cup round of 16 match at the Atlanta Stadium today. Trailing 2-0 deep into the second half, the reigning world champions produced one of the greatest comebacks in World Cup history to secure their place in the quarter-finals. Cristian Romero ignited the comeback, rising highest to bury a powerful header past Shabir from a set piece. Redemption arrived for Lionel Messi, who lashed home a left-footed equalizer.
Cape Verde score against Argentina, and the cameras cut straight to Gianni Infantino's face in the stands. No smile, no excitement, just a flicker of something that looks a lot like disappointment. Later in an interview, the FIFA president admits it himself. He says he suffered through that match. Sit with that for a second. The president of world football, the man whose entire job description is neutrality, publicly admitting he suffered watching an underdog score one of the greatest goals in their nation's history. Why would he suffer, unless he had already decided who he wanted to win? That single clip has been replayed millions of times, and it's just one piece of something much bigger that has completely taken over football conversations this World Cup. Messi misses a tackle that would get anyone else a straight red, yellow card. Game continues. Argentina go down 2 goals against Egypt in the round of 16, one of the great World Cup upsets 20 minutes away from happening, and somehow Argentina win 3-2, with 2 of the biggest decisions of the match going their way in stoppage time. 58 fouls committed by Argentina across the tournament. Only 3 yellow cards shown. If you've spent any time on football social media over the last few weeks, you already know exactly where this conversation goes next. Rigged, fixed. FIFA wants Messi to win it one more time before he's gone. And here's the part that makes this so hard to simply dismiss as noise. It isn't just angry fans anymore. Egypt's own manager stood in front of cameras after that round of 16 match and said, and this is close to a direct quote, that there seemed to be pressure on the officials to deliver an outcome. Their players said the same thing. And separately, completely separately from anything involving Argentina, something is happening at the very top of FIFA that has nothing to do with conspiracy theories and everything to do with documented fact. 72 members of the European Parliament have formally demanded an investigation into FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Real lawmakers, real letters. A real ethics complaint already filed months before this tournament even began. So here's where this story actually gets complicated, because there are 2 separate conversations happening at once, and most people online are mixing them together without realizing it. One conversation is about whether referees have quietly been favoring Argentina on the pitch. The other is about something much bigger, whether the man running world football has been trading favors with the most powerful political figure on the planet, and whether that same instinct to bend the rules for power has shown up more than once this tournament. One of those stories might be pure coincidence dressed up as conspiracy. The other one is already sitting in front of European lawmakers as we speak. Let's actually separate the 2 and look at what's real. Start with the on-field case against Argentina, because this is where the conversation began, and it began with actual numbers, not just vibes. Across this tournament, Argentina have committed 58 fouls and received only 3 yellow cards. For context, that's one of the lowest card per foul ratios of any team left in the competition. Against Algeria, Messi caught a defender high on the leg in a challenge that plenty of neutrals felt deserved at least a booking. Nothing given. Against Austria, a foul in the build-up to Argentina's opening goal went completely unreviewed, while later in the tournament, an almost identical situation against Egypt saw the officials pull the play all the way back and disallow a goal. That inconsistency is really the entire foundation of the conspiracy conversation, and it's worth being honest about it. Inconsistency in officiating is real, it's frustrating, and it happened. The question is what it actually proves. Then there's the match that turned this from a fan theory into a genuine controversy. Round of 16, Argentina against Egypt. Egypt score early, then double their lead in the second half. 20 minutes left. One of the great World Cup upsets in history is sitting right there. And then it unravels. A VAR review chalks off what would have been a 3rd Egyptian goal, over a foul so marginal that even neutral pundits split 50-50 on whether it was correct. A penalty appeal for a shirt pull inside the box gets waved away. Argentina score twice in the final stretch. Enzo Fernandez wins it deep into stoppage time, and Egypt's manager walks into his post-match press conference and says the outcome felt engineered. Here's what actually happened when people slowed the footage down, frame by frame. The disallowed goal did have a foul in the build-up, a shirt pull and a stepped-on foot right at the start of the move, and because Egypt never lost possession after that moment, the entire attacking sequence was legally connected to it. Under the actual laws of the game, that is exactly the kind of situation VAR exists to catch. Soft, debatable, but not incorrect. The shirt pull penalty appeal was real contact, but the same kind of contact happening at basically every corner kick in world football, on both teams, all tournament. If that gets called every time, half the goals in this competition get chalked off. And here's the detail that the loudest version of the conspiracy conveniently leaves out every single time. Messi missed a penalty in that exact match. If the outcome had truly been arranged in advance, the simplest possible gift, a penalty for the most famous player alive, with the whole world watching, should have been the easiest thing to guarantee. It wasn't. He missed it. That's now 2 missed penalties for Messi at this tournament alone. So that's the honest, complicated truth about the on-field case. Real inconsistencies, genuinely debatable calls, a manager and a nation that felt robbed in the moment, and also, when you actually apply the letter of the law, decisions that were mostly defensible on their own terms. Frustrating officiating is not the same thing as a scripted outcome, even when it happens to the same team more than once. Referees across this entire tournament have been inconsistent in every direction, for every team, the way referees always are. But here's where this story stops being a fan argument about VAR and becomes something else entirely. Because while everyone was arguing about a marginal foul in a round of 16 match, a completely different and far more serious controversy was unfolding at the top of the sport, one that has nothing to do with debatable refereeing decisions and everything to do with documented political interference. Back in July, during the round of 32, American striker Folarin Balogun picked up a red card against Bosnia-Herzegovina, a suspension that should have ruled him out of the United States' next match. Then Donald Trump personally called Gianni Infantino to ask for the decision to be reviewed. Trump confirmed it himself to reporters. And within days, FIFA reversed course, changing its own disciplinary process mid-tournament to clear Balogun to play. European lawmakers did not react quietly. 72 members of the European Parliament signed a formal letter demanding an investigation into whether political pressure from a sitting head of state had directly altered the outcome of a competitive football match. That wasn't the first time concerns like this had been raised either. Months earlier, FIFA had awarded Trump its brand new inaugural Peace Prize at the World Cup draw, an award that immediately drew a formal ethics complaint from a human rights organization, accusing Infantino of repeatedly breaching FIFA's own rules on political neutrality. Over 50 members of the European Parliament backed that complaint too, months before a ball had even been kicked in this tournament. Layer on top of that the broader pattern critics have pointed to for years, a multi-billion-dollar sponsorship relationship with Saudi Arabia, and the 2034 World Cup awarded to Saudi Arabia essentially uncontested. None of that proves match fixing, but it does paint a picture of an organization that has, by its own critics, documented and formally filed complaints, shown a repeated willingness to bend its own rules and its own neutrality for the world's most powerful people. And that's really the uncomfortable place this whole conversation lands. Two very different stories, tangled together in the public imagination. One is a genuinely debatable, emotionally charged argument about whether a refereeing pattern favored one team across a handful of matches. A case built on real frustration, but ultimately resting on decisions that, examined individually, mostly held up under the actual laws of the game. The other is a documented, ongoing, formally investigated case of a World Cup being shaped by a phone call from the most powerful man in America, completely unrelated to Argentina, and arguably a far more serious threat to the integrity of this tournament than anything that happened in a round of 16 match in Atlanta. People conflate the two because they both point at the same institution, and because doubt, once it exists, tends to attach itself to whatever story is loudest in the moment. But conflating them actually makes it harder to hold FIFA accountable for the thing that's actually provable. If the real scandal is political interference at the very top of the sport, burying that under a still unproven conspiracy about refereeing decisions in one football match does nobody any favors. Not Egypt, not the lawmakers investigating Infantino, and not the sport itself. So where does that leave Argentina? Still standing, still unbeaten, still with Lionel Messi somehow producing magic at nearly 40 years old on the biggest stage in the world. A team that has, by any honest reading of the evidence, benefited from a genuinely inconsistent pattern of officiating, and also a team that has missed penalties, been drawn against sides they didn't personally eliminate to reach this stage, and has had to survive every single round the hard way, on the pitch, with the football actually being played, and it all arrives at the most fitting moment possible. Today, England against Argentina, in Atlanta, with a place in the World Cup final on the line, and with every single one of these questions still completely unresolved. If Argentina win, this conversation only gets louder. If they lose, everyone insisting this was all rigged will have to explain how the fix apparently stopped working right when it mattered most. Maybe the truth really is sitting exactly where it always sits in stories like this, somewhere in the uncomfortable overlap between genuine institutional failure and the oldest excuse in sport, the refusal to simply admit that the other team was better. FIFA has real, documented questions to answer about political interference that have nothing to do with Argentina at all. Whether Argentina themselves have been quietly gifted a run to remember, or whether the greatest player of this generation is simply doing what he has always done at the biggest moments, that's the argument that will follow this team into every match they play from here until the final whistle blows.